The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
Well, I'm super excited because I'm going to see you tomorrow, so that's one thing.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for the trip. So, if our audience didn't listen to one of the last episodes, we mentioned that Jamie and I would be heading to Chicago for a podcast conference or convention. It's called Podcast Movement Evolutions. We're going because we're going to try to learn all the good tips and tricks from everybody that's been in this industry for a while, network a little bit out there, tell everybody Sweetie's story. It's going to be fantastic. They're going to learn. We're going to spread the news, spread all the wonderful news about Sweetie and what we're doing with this podcast out there. Now, this recording, when this goes live, it's going to be about a week after we've returned from Podcast Movement. But right now, we're just super excited to go see everything about the podcasting industry in about a day or so.
Well, and also to see each other.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh! And just to spend time.
I know, because we live on opposite sides of the state, so we can't see each other on a regular basis. So it'll be nice to spend some time together.
Coffee.
I got coffee. You got coffee.
Yep. So check. Just if people were wondering. Of course, yeah. That's a foregone conclusion. So. Good things.
Yeah.
But today we have a couple exciting letters here. Now, the second letter we're going to break into two parts. But amazingly, and I did not expect this to happen so quickly and to get into April of 2025, Jamie, we're at the end of 1946.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're moving right along. We're going right through all these letters. And pretty soon we'll be in 47.
1947. 1946 has been a really rough year for Sweetie. A lot of things happening. There's no easy way to say it in these post-war days. She, of course, had baby Lewis at the end of 1945. And then, of course, for those who may have missed some of the episodes, she is forced to move to Pennsylvania to join Lou, who says, you really need to be here in southeastern Pennsylvania. She goes only for a week later to hear the horrible, horrible family tragedy news that her brother Bob has passed away because of a plane crash out in the western part of the United States. And she wants nothing else to be with family than to be with family and can't. So then she's stuck at 936 Springfield Road at Collingdale with her in-laws, whom she does not want to be around at that time period, for a couple of months, and things are miserable. But things take a turn for the better when she gets her own place on Love Lane in Norwood, Pennsylvania by the summer. And then she gets to visit her family in the fall. Right, so we're doing this last recap of 1946 because we're about to leave the year here.
Yeah.
And last episode, we had that amazing letter of her travel back on the Pennsylvania Turnpike.
So amazing. Such an appreciation for something that, that's such an everyday part of my life.
Yeah. For those of us in Pennsylvania, that can be very much taken for granted. But my goodness, what an amazing accomplishment it was when the Turnpike opened. And my goodness, how expensive it is today to use it. But then we head here. We're in December. So we have two letters here. One December 1st, one December 20th. And the pregame, we would say, to Christmas of 1946. Sweetie is now has planted her feet in Pennsylvania. Because all year, this has been very uncertain, I think. But she's gotten back from that trip. And she understands now. She's a Pennsylvanian. And so no more of this wanting to leave at every single moment. We're starting to really move forward. We're going to end 1946 on that note. But there's still a lot going on at the time.
Yeah, so, she's living her life now. She's established a life. So she's taking care of Lewis, and he is a handful. We get some really great, these are really great letters and explain, and we get to learn more about how Lewis is doing and how her life is going on in Pennsylvania.
But one thing before we get started, of course, thank you to all of our returning audience members who are listening to the Love Sweetie podcast. If you're new, welcome to the Love Sweetie podcast. If you're on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. Only a portion of our audience that watches these videos are actually subscribed to the videos. And if you are subscribed, there's that little notifications button. You can check that to make sure you're getting notified when there's new content, new episodes of the Love Sweetie podcast. that are appearing on YouTube. So please, maybe I should just pause here and be like, I'll wait. Click the subscribe button.
Go subscribe, please.
Go subscribe.
Subscribe.
It's just a button.
Subscribe.
It's free.
It's free.
Click the button. Yeah, please like, share, and subscribe. We really do appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. If you're listening Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of these channels, if you could leave a review or do the equivalent, the subscribe on those channels, we very much appreciate that as well. Welcome to all of our new listeners. If you're listening and there are photographs or things being talked about that are being shown on the screen on the video version on YouTube, never fear, these photographs and things appear at our website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. Again, that's www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. Go there to check out the photo galleries and see the things that are being talked about, so you're not left out when things are showing up on the video. You can just easily check out the website, maybe even as you're listening, and you'll see the photos there that are being referenced. It's pretty organized. Go into the galleries, look at all these great old photos. All that being said, Jamie, it's time to dive into December of 1946. Let's see what Sweetie's up to. December 1st, 1946, 37 South Love Lane, Norwood, Pennsylvania. Dearest family, I've received 2 letters from Jean, both of which have been on the same subject, my neglect in writing to any of you. So I in turn shall write to you again. I don't have a great deal of time, for Louis will soon be awake, and it is nearly impossible to write with him pulling at me and whimpering as he does, to be took so he can pound the typewriter too. I've noticed, however, there's a distinct advantage for me in not writing to you very often. If you don't hear from me, everybody writes. If not to inquire why I haven't written, to scold me for not writing for the folks. But I do get mail. On the other hand, when I do write to you my long and lengthy letters, you get the desired info and know that everybody here is okay, and that is that. No letters. It is a vicious circle, isn't it? Jean, your package that I wrote you about will be in the mail tomorrow. At this rate, it will be confused with a Christmas present, and I don't want that to happen. It is your birthday present, and I do mean for 1946. Mama, I'm not sure that I mentioned getting your nice birthday card and the check, but not that I can tell you how I'm going to use it. I'll go into detail about it. You remember the nice little fuzzy dog that Susie had when she came to visit you? Well, after a long and diligent search, we found one of those fleece puppies, a little bigger and a little more expensive, perhaps. But it is genuine fleece, and will launder well. So we're buying it for Louis for Christmas and putting Grandpa and Grandma's name on it. I'm going to get the permanent before Christmas if I can do it, and I think I can. The permanent will take the biggest chunk out of it along with the dog, but the remainder will go into a set of blues for Lou. He does need them very bad, and since I must combine the practical side with a gift, I think that will be the wisest thing to get for Lou. He doesn't know this, so please do not any of you mention it when you write. Optimistic soul, aren't I? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I love those little jabs that they take at each other about writing.
Oh my gosh. It's so good. This whole writing circle that's going on. Well, if I withhold information, then everybody gets nervous. And then I get all my letters. But if I write you a book about something or a giant essay, then you don't write me anything and I don't know what's going on. So I think I'll sit back for a bit and let you fill in the gaps. And then, oh, are we worried? Oh, great. Now I'm going to tell you everything that's been going on.
That's funny.
Fantastic.
I think it's like a little thing that they just do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just that it's like this is how they are, and it makes me laugh, and I think it's a cute thing. Yeah. It's a cute little family thing. But also she does say that too. Like, and Louis is like he's a handful right now. He's at a point where he needs attention. He's not somebody. Oh, my daughter never took naps. Naps for 45 minutes. I remember when she'd go down, I'd be like, okay, and go, and I'd have to go do the laundry and run over here and load the dishwasher and do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before she woke up and needed my attention.
Who doesn't want to play with a typewriter?
I know, it makes great sounds. It's clicky clacky. There's pushy buttons. But
for a kid, he's thinking, man, she's playing with my present over there. And then what happens at the end, of course? Ding! No, fantastic.
Yeah,
we've lost
right.
the ding.
It's impossible to resist.
Have you seen the videos online? Not that I condone this, but have you seen the videos online of like the pranks in the college lecture halls where somebody brings the typewriter to class in like these big lecture halls? They're on
No.
YouTube. This is something, yeah.
Can you
It's
imagine?
fantastic. Because of course everybody's got their laptops out and there's this big case, and of course somebody brings out this typewriter, and as the professor's talking, just from one click, it's like click, and it just echoes because it's a lecture hall, right? So the acoustics are perfect for this. And they just slowly start typing more of their notes. And then all of a sudden, just very quietly, my favorite one is when they're trying to be quiet about the ding, but there's no volume control on a typewriter, right? So they're just like, ding, and like the roller goes, and the professor just turns around.
That would be so bad. But yes, so obviously she's out there making a lot of fun noises. And so he wants to play.
I have looked for a blanket for you, and have found one that is 72 inches wide that I will buy for you. This is to be considered your Christmas present, though. I hate to tell you ahead of time, but I thought that you might go ahead and buy one since you said you needed one so badly. I'll send it ahead of time if you want me to, so that you can get some good out of it before the holidays. I hope you'll be pleased with it. We've made several trips trying to decide about Christmas presents, and I'm really amazed to see the number of people buying such high-priced stuff, while I say I'd like to have it, but I just can't afford to pay that much for so little. Gee, some of the things are nice, though, and how often I wish I could go downtown with an unlimited amount of money at my fingertips. But even so, we've gone beyond our means a little. But Lou says it is Christmas, and the kids look forward to it all year, so we might just as well put our 2 cents worth in, too. I certainly did enjoy your 2 letters, Jean, especially to hear from Mr. Novotny's report, etc. It helps keep us abreast of what you're doing. I'm not sure I like Gordon Gammack anymore for printing his little article about Daddy as he did, though Lou got quite a kick out of it.
Okay, we're going to pause here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because in the previous letter, we learned that somebody had been elected coroner, although it was not explicitly mentioned that it was Chester. I'm assuming it was. And when I came across this when I was reading, I was like, oh, I wonder if we could find that article, because Allison's really good at this kind of stuff. And Allison, tell him a little bit more about Gordon.
Yeah. So first of all, this is going to be a bit of an investigation of the Love Sweetie podcast that we're going to be working on, because we have not yet found the article, but we are looking for this article that was written about Chester. So Chester in the news, that's up there with important content. But then we were looking up Gordon Gammack, the news reporter. And as it would turn out, Gordon Gammack was a pretty famous news reporter in Iowa at the time. So after doing a little digging about this, just a little basics about Gordon here. So Gordon was born in 1909, dies 1974. And he was really a war correspondent. That's where he made his name. He had a 40-year career in the press. And the companies he worked for was the Des Moines Register. We've looked at some of their information in the past when we've talked about articles, and the Des Moines Tribune. So both major papers right there in the capital of Iowa. But he worked as a war correspondent for World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam. And just focusing in on World War II, he went overseas in 1943 to talk about Iowans that were serving. So he was extremely well known to the troops. Some of the information says he was with the American forces, when they liberated the city of Paris. He was with troops in Italy. He was basically in the European theater going around with people. So he was extremely well known. You can imagine Iowans that are trying to follow what's going on with the war, reading his articles, to get that sort of hometown feel of like, here's where the Iowans specifically are. And we've talked a lot about Iowans' commitment to serving in wars. We can tell, they have such a state pride. I mean, all the way back from the Civil War, really, and on. A war correspondent of this quality going overseas with the troops, and then to do it for so consistently during his career is quite incredible. So we're going to be doing some research about Mr. Gammack here. First of all, we need to find out what he was saying. For her to say about such a famous reporter who covered, the overseas troops from Iowa in Europe, to say, I'm not sure I like him anymore for what he wrote about Chester. That's an interesting statement. Something that can't bode well for whatever was being said about Chester. And you're right, the timing is right after the coroner election that got mentioned. So it's probably in relation. Maybe he was covering the elections, and he was talking about these various individuals. So we're going to try to find that. I suspect the article somewhere in the Des Moines Tribune or the Des Moines Register, because that's where he was working. So we're going to look for that. But furthermore, we're going to probably do a nice deep dive on Gordon Gammack. But right now, I'm just going to side with my grandmother and be like, yeah, I don't like him. But maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe. This could just be in the moment. So we'll see.
So the Leonard boys are making the office into a beer parlor? Did they buy the office, and at what exorbitant price this time? Guess Loosebrock wasn't earning enough at Perry, and he had to show something on the debit side, even if he had to make it by selling the office at a sky-high price. We're having some very nice weather, and I'm just wondering how long it can last. We do have some nippy, windy days, but mostly the sun has been out and warmed the house and people, so that they come along the streets carrying their coats. We had a very nice Thanksgiving with Lou's mother, and Elizabeth, and Marguerite and Joe came from New York, too. There was turkey with all the trimmings, and we all, little Louis too, ate until we were on the verge of blowing a gasket. They are coming to our house, I think, for Christmas to see Louis with his Christmas tree and presents. I am not too excited about getting the big Christmas dinner, but I guess I can do it. Lou had Thursday and Friday off, and while he was gone, a 22-year-old officer was killed in one of the fighter planes. The cause isn't known, but from the way he took off in the plane, the board called it pilot's negligence. Dottie is having 18 guests in to celebrate Johnny's first birthday, which seems ridiculous to me, but we're invited. I bought a 98-cent pull toy for him, and from seeing the other gifts he's already received, it probably will look just like that. A 98-cent toy.
Okay.
So the neighbor's name is Dottie.
The neighbor's name is Dottie.
Because she has mentioned her before, and she's never mentioned her by name.
No. It was the neighbor next door. She helped her with the issue with their dog. Sad issue with the dog when they went to the vet. But she was there for the neighbor. And so they've built this little relationship with the neighbor's family. So now she's being invited to the Dottie's son's first birthday party. Gee, Jamie, I wonder what's going to happen at the birthday party.
Gosh, I don't know, Allison.
Let's see.
Louis has quite a cold again. He doesn't seem to cough much through the day, but at night he makes up for all day long. Last night he coughed and coughed until he gagged himself and threw up all over his bed. We stripped him and started all over again. He refused to go back into his own bed, and so I took him to bed with me. He didn't give much warning and certainly no time to jump until he did it again. He is off the bottle as of now, and heaven help me and give me strength tonight when he starts wanting that bottle. I want to write a note to Franks and Maida and Susie, and so I'd better stop now and have plenty of time to get ready for the party. Do write and tell us what your plans are for Christmas. Will Mama and Daddy go to Sister's and Bill's for the big, exciting day? Will Jean be there, too? Do write about it, won't you? If I can keep this typewriter a little longer, I'll try to keep writing often. But as I said before, that doesn't excuse you from writing me. All of our love to all of you, Sweetie, Lou, and Louis.
I like how she ends that one.
I do. If she can keep the typewriter a little... Look, Elizabeth, this is Elizabeth's typewriter. You don't need that typewriter. Do not take that typewriter from Sweetie.
She doesn't need it. Who's she writing to?
Yeah, exactly. I just don't see Dit as a big writer. And clearly she's not concerned. Sweetie's had the typewriter for a while. You could just leave it with her. That would be great. So she doesn't have to worry about this. Now, before we get into the next letter, which is going to answer, I think, some of the questions that were posed in the letter from December 1st, we have an interesting document here to review. Now, this was actually appended to a part of a previous letter. We didn't go into it at the time. We've described Love Lane. Sweetie's getting everything put into place where she likes it. But we do have more information about the house at Love Lane. If you're listening to the audio version, I strongly suggest you go to the website, check this out. But here, Jamie, is from a previous letter. This is her bigger diagram.
Oh, there we go.
Of the interior of Love Lane and where she has everything. Now, she does make this note in pencil here, which is again, pencil. This is all sadly out of proportion, but you'll get an idea at least. So she's noting there's a little bit sort of size-wise that's not really working out. But she described this looked like the house where we'd already seen a diagram in 1946. Same thing. It's got the 4 rooms in the hall with the bath at the end. So we can imagine what this would have looked like in 1946. But she does identify all of her furniture that she has in place. So the front door, which she has right at the bottom of the screen there in the center, it opens into the living room. And there we have the Davenport on one side and a sofa bed on the other. So that's interesting to have these two things opposite each other. The gate leg table on the left. If you were walking in her front door, you'd see a big chair. She called it a big chair. So maybe upholstered, maybe just a big chair. And then the gate leg table right behind it. And you look to your right across the living room, really empty floor space. And then you see the Davenport. But on your right, if you were to turn and look right, you'd see a drum table, a sofa bed with a window, and another drum table. These are really the end tables. Of course, I don't think we call them drum table anymore, but we can envision what she's talking about.
Well, we don't call it Davenport anymore either.
No, we don't. Yeah. That just makes me think about Jack Davenport, the actor.
It looks to me like the living room's probably pretty packed.
Yeah, pretty packed. And then she's got some chairs, lamps, things like that. Now, there's a little opening in the back that leads back into the kitchen. So in the kitchen, it mentions there's a big buffet table, a small buffet along the side wall, or server. Then you have the linen closet in the kitchen here. Not much closet space.
And also there's a note, you can kind of tell the linen closet opens in the hallway.
Yeah.
So that the linen closet, I don't think you don't have access to it, but it's definitely there's a part of it there. And then I was wondering about refrigeration at this time, and so there's an ice box.
Ice box, yeah.
Right next to where the
fridge, ice box,
linen closet is. And then I can't read that stuff.
All right, so she's saying sink with
a drain.
Something else. Yeah, with a drain. A drain board, yeah. Cupboards above and below. There we go. So yeah, so we get the sink, we get the cupboards. If you imagine those 40s and 50s kitchens, you can think about the style that would be there. A stove, the gas stove, the window in the back. And then on the opposite side, we've got a chair, the host chair. So that's important. The host chair is different for any of our younger audience. They're not. Look, what I love to do. There's a couple things about this house that just made me think about historical things about houses. I don't know if people have taken a lot of historical house tours, but there's big differences between the 20th century and houses that came before. Talking about the host chair real quick. It's like when you go into the dining room, two of them have arms and the rest do not. Okay, Gen Z. That's the host chair, the one with the arms. Don't put that along the wrong side of the table. You were talking about the closets. This made me think about this. The linen closet. I'm gonna have to do some research on when closets really became a thing, because whenever you go into a historical home tour, especially 1700s, 1800s, into the late 1800s, one thing that you will not see in a lot of house tours, and test this, but when you tour a historical home, are closets. Closets were not a thing. Rich homes started to have closets. Some of them did. But for the most part, that's where we see the dressers come in. There's not separate closets. So the fact that there's a linen closet in the kitchen, the fact that there's a hall closet, this is very much 20th century. But it just wasn't a feature of a design back in the 1700s, 1800s. So just seeing the closet labeled out, it made me think about it, to bring up the point that for people that might not be aware, next time you're doing a historical home tour, especially for houses 200, 300 years old, that's why there's not a lot of closet space. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing at all. So we really see that here. Now we know she's going to need that space. She definitely will. When we get to the hallway, we have the cellar stairs. So there is a cellar that's going to lead down. And at the end of the hall, we have the bathroom with what she's called before the 3 regulation items, right? So your regulation items you must have in a bathroom: the sink, the toilet, the shower. So we can see all 3 of them there. And then she says baby's bathinette. So it's BATHINETTE, bathinette, a portable bathtub for babies.
Look at that. That's amazing.
I guess they still make them a little bit, but put that on your baby shower list on Amazon and confuse some people. Be like, wait, that's a word? It is. So she's written baby's bathinette there. So Lewis has his own little tub in the bathroom. Oh,
that's adorable. Nice. So then if you look at his room, which is right next to the bathroom, she did say something about putting a buffet in his room to use for storage. And then she keeps his buggy in there, and he's got his crib and playpen.
Yep.
And then here I see a closet used for storage of wool things, etc. So there is a closet between their rooms. Our first house that we bought was actually the guy who built it. It was built back in the Great Depression, and part of it was he built as an apartment. And the closet space was so awful in there. You're talking about the closet space, and I just remember how horrible it was. It was so tiny for like the big house. But yeah, so I wonder what kind of like, well, this was the project, right? This was stuff
the project,
that this was newer construction. So they put the closets in there, but that's cool.
What's interesting there is it also is across the dividing line of the other bedroom. Now, my grandmother had this. This is a feature of the house up in the mountains. My other grandmother, my mother's side, and her house was built in 1912. And they have the shared closet between rooms. I don't know if you've seen these before. And because she has this written over the line, the way it would work is the closet space would be shared. You could access it from both rooms. The door would be on either side. So I'm going to suspect, because it's drawn this way, that this is one of those shared closets where it has a door on her side and a door on the baby's side. I don't think they really do that anymore in homes, the shared closet. Imagine like two hotel rooms that are together and you have your door, but instead there's that gap of space. So it's acting as a closet. Now, in my grandmother's home, it was a rolled door. It wasn't like one that just opens outwards. So, because obviously concern for spaces and things like that. But because she's drawn it that way, I'm considering, and especially with the time period, that could have been a thing that people were like, wow, that's a neat idea. We don't really see that anymore.
No.
But it's interesting. Lewis has more things in his room than like anybody else. He's got a rocking horse in there, the crib, the chair, another rocking chair, and his playpen. We don't see the swing being noted here that had been mentioned, which I imagine was sort of like in, one of those that's just in the living room and they can swing and things like that. But we do see that he has more things than I think anybody else. So, and then we get into the bedroom there where we would see the continuation of that closet, the dresser, the chest of drawers. That's interesting to me. There's always a difference between chest of drawers and a dresser.
Oh, and she has her vanity.
She has her vanity.
So in their bedroom. And this is actually like a sticking point with me. This is kind of stuff. I don't have very many. I have some pet peeves. Not very many, but this is one of them. Putting the bed up against the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. On two sides.
Like who does who does that? Single men. like bachelors.
Yeah.
They put their bed, they're like, I need more room for activities. Like, no, put that bed so that you can access it from both sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm guessing that's probably where it was.
Yeah.
It was pushed up against the bed, pushed up against the wall, so she had to like crawl over Lewis, or somebody had to crawl into bed first.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think they could have probably got it. But yeah, with that one closet on the one side and the one closet on the other, I got it.
Opening on the other side, yeah, and the windows.
But this is really cool. So this is her home. This is where she has decided she's made this her own. Yeah, and we got all that. Yeah, because the gate leg table, Lou refinished that, so it looks really nice. They had all this lovely stuff that they got real cheap. So yeah, so it's kind of cool to see it all placed out.
It's the last remaining piece we have that really gives a visual on Love Lane outside of the letters themselves. And then you figure, because this is a typical layout, Dottie's house is probably pretty typical right next to it. It's probably very similar. So if people are wondering houses in the 40s, the layout of like this financial bracket, post-war, young families, starter homes, probably extremely similar to what she's doing here. So we get a good view on everything they have. And we learned our new word, bassinet. So good times. New word still around. Fantastic. All right. But so I wanted to go into that before we left 1946, because now she's settled. And we head into December 20th of 1946, the last letter that she writes in 46, right before Christmas. And I think we're going to get some update on some things, Jamie.
Norwood, Pennsylvania, December 20th, 1946. Dear Jean, folks, sisters, and Franks. First, let me say, Jean, your letter still gives me a big giggle. I split my sides the first time, and now when I think of it, I suffer from adhesions. I read it aloud to Lou just after we'd come home, sat down with my coat on, couldn't wait to take it off and read away. We discussed your run-in with the fellow, and could almost see you when you dressed him down. But it was the description of the fight at 13th and Forest that nearly done me in. While I was reading it, I got to giggling, and soon it grew to such hilarity that Lewis became quite perturbed, and grabbing me by the coat tail, he began yelling, "Mama! Mama! Mama!" I could hardly stop laughing to reassure him. Yes, sir, we really enjoyed it. As we remembered the mousie that chawed on the popcorn while we were living with you, the mouse-catching incident renewed memories, and again we guffawed heartily. Yes, I recognized the toothy character that you drew on the card, and answered her back in the same fashion. I don't think there was another group picture. This is all I have. Second, we've sent off all the Christmas boxes, and perhaps some of them have arrived safely by now. We hope. Sister, you'll find your birthday box in with one of the Christmas presents. I was going to send it separately, but decided for mailing purposes it could go in together. I'll be thinking of you on the 23rd, and so here's an early happy birthday. You might let us know how all the boxes are received. I hope they'll not be too badly mangled. Of course, you need not be told that they aren't to be opened before Christmas. Mama, we enjoyed your chatty letter. Jean says you hope to have your teeth before Christmas. I hope you do, and I hope you don't have any trouble with them. I do wish I could see them, but I'd be satisfied just to see you, teeth or no teeth. Lou is starting his 9-day Christmas leave. Started it yesterday. 9 days. If we had the money to make the trip, and if we thought the car could put up with another such trip, we'd come out there to see you again. How I'd love to be there for Christmas morning. In a way, I will be, for I'll surely be thinking about all of you. Do have a nice time together, and stop just long enough to get my telegraphic message to you. It will be there.
Okay. Yep.
So when she first came out, we've said before, she was not happy. She often talked about going back home, and she wanted to be home and stuff. But now it really definitely seems like she's accepted that this is where she is, and that she won't be spending time with them. But it doesn't seem to have such an effect on her anymore.
Right. She's managed to take a step forward. She's managed to take a deep breath of where she needs to be. And she's able to laugh again, which I think is so significant. But because earlier, I think in 1946, she was even writing in her letters, she can't giggle anymore. She couldn't laugh. She literally wrote that. For her to get to that point, and then for the letter to come in at the beginning and say, I got a letter. I couldn't even wait to read it. Didn't take my coat off. And they were laughing so much that little Lewis was getting concerned that something was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, are you okay? And she's just like, basically, ROFL, like all over the place,
right.
LMAO, what a change. So what a change. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I love the way that she words things too. They guffawed heartily.
Yeah, just the description.
I couldn't wait to hear you read that part out loud. That was so funny. She's got such a great vocabulary, and she definitely employs it in these letters. So, but yeah, she's gotten to a better place. And it didn't really take that long in the grand scheme of things.
No. But time needed to pass. She needed to get some healing done. I think the biggest healing moment was when she did see her family. The stuff that we didn't hear written about was September, October, when she got home to Iowa and she got to spend time and have those very private conversations, with her family about what had occurred and where things were. Because by the time she's back in Pennsylvania after the trip on the Turnpike, if you didn't listen to episode 50, go listen to that.
Go listen.
There's just such a different tone to her letters. Something has clearly happened on this trip where it's like, okay, we have to move forward together, as a group here. There's something between the Demarees has occurred. Yeah. And then she's thinking about Christmas, of course, and that Lou's going to have a little bit of a leave here. And she leaves the most beautiful line. In a way, I will be there. She's, for Iowa, for I'll surely be thinking about all of you. And just that sentiment, it's like, okay. She's like, I'm okay that I'm not there, but I'm going to be there anyway. Like, we're all connected. So it's nice to see 1946 end the year in this kind of mindset after such a tough year that she had. But then, Jamie, we've got an update on something from the previous letter. We get the full scoop on what happened at the party.
The Johnny party was just as we expected. Lewis was the only baby there. The rest were married people and grandparents. I guess the idea was to get birthday presents, and from that angle, they achieved their purpose. They had a big spread, 4 or 5 different kinds of sandwich meat, potato salad, potato chips, pretzels, pickles, and cake and ice cream. I knew none of the people except Dot's mother and father, and so it was not too easy just to go in and be at ease. However, Lewis didn't seem to notice, for he just walked away with the whole shebang. Might I add, much to Dot's and the grandmother's jealous efforts, he got all the attention away from Johnny. He agreeably did all the little tricks he knew, and was so big as many times as anybody asked him, patty-caked and awed over the dogs and Johnny's toys until they hid them from him. We didn't stay late since we had to come home and put him to bed, and I think Dot and her mother were glad to see us leave, since then the center of attraction would be shifted from Lewis to the rightful man of the hour.
That's hilarious.
Life of the party.
I know. He went in and he was like, hey, I can walk and I'm cute. And,
right.
And they probably,
Yeah, he's the only other baby there. And of course, surrounded by all these adults. And all the adults are just like, oh my God, this baby's adorable.
They're like, you're so big, aren't you? And he's probably like, Oh, he loved it. Oh, he just was eating up all that attention. And then there was cake and ice cream.
Right.
I mean, come on.
And he's walking. We know he's walking at this point. So he's walking around, doing all his little tricks, Oh my goodness.
That's cute.
And the poor Dottie and the grandmother being like, this is not his birthday party.
Well, I'm sure it's like, there really isn't much anybody, what are you going to do?
So, there's Lewis basically being like, it's fine. I'll be the center of the attention because clearly things must be boring here. And then everybody's circling around him. Yep, time to go home. Time to go home.
That's funny. She was a little worried about it, too.
Mm-hmm.
About the party and how it was going to go and how things were going to be. So,
yeah.
Well,
yeah. That's how it went.
That's how it went. Yeah, exactly.
But we actually had to break this letter into 2 parts because then she goes into some other items here about Lewis generally. Because now he's about he's a year and 3 months old or so. He's about that. So just over a year old. And there is a concern that she's having. And I'm sure it's a concern that various parents have had over the years. I can't relate to it. Maybe Jamie, when we get through this, you can go into some of the information about what the concern is here. But he's giving Sweetie a hard time. So we'll see what Lewis is doing. After being the life of the party, now she's a bit worried about something.
I was quite buffaloed by the bottle fight. During the afternoon, he would play and finally drop off to sleep. But at night, when it came time to go to bed, he just wouldn't. I decided that we'd take the bottle away, and that would be that. During the day, he didn't object so much, but at night, when we turned out the light and put him in bed, he would really howl. It seemed as though he was afraid to be left alone in the dark, and he would cry at the top of his lungs. If I'd go in and lay him down again and perhaps pat his cheek, he would stop crying, but he would hold onto my hand as though he was afraid that as soon as he let go, I'd leave. It ended by picking him up and holding him until he'd go to sleep. Then it got worse, so that he wouldn't even go to sleep during the afternoon, as he had done. I decided he'd just have to cry, and so I'd take him to the bathroom and then give him a drink of warm milk from a glass, and then put him to bed, saying, "Night, night, now go to sleep." And while he would take the milk from the glass, the howling started just as soon as he hit the bed. Well, I really tried to let him go, and by the clock, he'd cry for 2.5 or 3 hours, and then he never would go to sleep. His eyes would be swollen as though he had taken heavy doses of sulfa, and his whole disposition changed. He is usually a very happy little boy, and he sings with the radio and argues with it. But he stopped all that. He wouldn't play, he did a lot of whining and pulling at my dress, all while I tried to work, and he was choosy about eating. He'd do things that he knew he shouldn't do, and just tried to see what he could do to make life a little more miserable for both of us. I thought it was just a question of letting him cry it out. But he wouldn't stop crying, and he certainly wouldn't go to sleep. So finally I gave in to him, and he has a bottle twice a day now. One good thing of the whole argument is that he doesn't have a bottle during the night. He has a bottle to go to sleep on, and that is that. I don't get up in the night to see about him, aside from the cover situation. While you may look upon it as a major default for me, I don't entirely feel that way about it, though I am disappointed, of course. His disposition is much improved, as a matter of fact. He plays better in the playpen now that he is a little older than he ever did before. He is cutting more teeth, he has 8, and is starting in on molars now. He says a few more words, sings lustily with any buxom-voiced soprano who graces the airwaves, and he constantly clowns his way from one thing into another. We took him and got his hair cut for the second time, just a day or 2 ago. Lou enjoyed it heartily, though it took Lou and me and a few choice words from the barber to get the job done at all. It looks very nice, I think, if a little fat-faced. He sure is a lot of fun, and I'd be so lonesome without him. I wouldn't know what to do.
But this takes me back. Because there is a huge controversy. Well, not so much a controversy. There's a big conversation around like children and sleeping arrangements and co-sleeping. And some people have very strong feelings about this. When I read this, I look at it through going through having trouble getting my children to go to sleep. And my daughter was a lot easier, but it ended up actually like I co-slept with her till she was probably like 5 or 6. And then my son, I tried to get him to go to sleep, and it was the same thing. It was just the same thing that Sweetie was dealing with. He didn't want to go to sleep. He needed a bottle. And I think, and I do really think there is a difference between boys and girls developmentally. And that translates into the sleep problems and trying to get them to sleep. Now, some people would look at this and say, if he wanted to stay with you, then just keep him, and some people are like, no, you can't do that. So I absolutely commend her. I think she did a wonderful job. I think she handled it as she knew how and how she felt. And I think most importantly, when you're a mother and you have these situations, relying on how you feel about the situation and relying on, that communication with your child and not allowing other people to come in and change that or affect that is the way to get through it. So she did. And at the end, she says here too, where was it? Hold on. Let me see.
It's a big section. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big section. And she just
really
goes on and on and on.
This, yeah.
She obviously was trying to get through this. While you may look upon it as a major default for me, I don't entirely feel that way about it. Although I am disappointed, of course. Yes. This is good. I think that, honestly, I think that Sweetie's a wonderful mother.
Yeah, she's really just trying to get to the bottom of an issue and handle it. Now, my question is, what is the obsession with not giving a kid who's still just over a year old? I just genuinely don't know. What is the whole thing about the bottle? That they don't want to give the bottle? I couldn't quite, he's like, why is this such a default? Like, that you're giving in by giving him the bottle. That I couldn't quite follow. I mean, he's just a little over a year old. I would think there's tons of babies that are still drinking out of a bottle, but is that considered late?
There's tons of babies who are still breastfeeding at 1 year old.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. This I think is more a sign of the time. And if you do have a bottle that you can, and if you're stuck on a bottle that actually can affect the development of your jaw and like bring it forward because you're sucking on a bottle all the time, so that can affect that. I think it maybe when it came to this, she thought that she should be taking the bottle away because society and culture has dictated that. And it doesn't seem like he was ready for it.
Yeah. And she just gave in eventually.
I think that this was a difficult situation that is totally, it's typical, it's normal, and she handled it, I think, the best way.
Well, that's good to hear, because I'm just like, I have no way to tell, but she's really obsessing about it, so it seemed like something a lot of parents think about a lot. But my goodness, does she detail out exactly her mindset with how things were back then.
We expect Marguerite and Joe from New York for Christmas. They want to come and see Louis when he gets his first look at the tree. But if they're to see that, they'll have to get here bright and early, and I'm a little skeptical of their early arrival. We're conforming to the Eastern method of decorating their Christmas tree, waiting until Christmas Eve to decorate the tree, and they usually have a garden at the foot of the tree. Ours will be quite small for Louis's sake, since he'll have to be shooed out of it. Since sending the packages and the cards off, I'm beginning to get the fever, and I'm quite anxious to have Christmas come around, and I suppose all of you are too. The only trouble is that Lou's leave is up, and he goes back to work the day of his birthday. We've had some pretty decent weather here, but today we've had our first snow, and I want to hurry and finish this letter so I can take Louis out and see what his reaction is. We've found that the nice blue snowsuit is almost too long in the legs for him to do any walking, since they blouse over because they're too long and the bloused part takes a beating when he walks. I put it on him one day when the wind was blowing chilly, and Dot took Johnny and went into town with me. It was very noticeable that people were audibly talking about Louis in his nice snowsuit, and Dottie just froze up, solider than a cake of ice. I didn't know she was such a character, as she really is.
Wow. Man, Dottie seems to be a little envious of how adorable Louis is.
Yeah. Poor Louis. Can you give somebody else the limelight here a little bit? Poor little Johnny would like some attention as well.
Well, Johnny needs to step up his game.
Johnny needs to step up his 1-year-old game. Yes.
Maybe he should get a green suit.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, that's an insight. That's not really an inside joke, but that's kind of a running gag we have here on the show.
Now I can only imagine what Louis's first reaction was to snow, because he loves to be outside. But now he's obviously the center of attention once again, just, going into town with Dot and with Johnny. But yeah, then this whole idea about a garden under the Christmas tree. This is
like, what's this whole mishbegosh of I'm not going to decorate the Christmas tree until Christmas Eve? What the actual?
Yeah, no. And then there's like this garden underneath of it, and she says it has to be smaller because Louis will have to be shooed out of it. So I guess it's legitimately they would put a lot of plants under the Christmas tree. And that, I'm like, where the presents go? I don't know. But then he has to be shooed out of it because, of course, Louis likes to be outside. So he's going to be like, and of course it's a tree. Like the tree is in his mind.
House.
Yeah, trees are supposed to be outside. Now the tree is inside. My cats did this. They're like, one came in. And now there's all this other stuff. Of course he's going to think it's a jungle and go running around and whatever that is. So, yeah, I haven't heard about the garden at the base of the tree. Maybe that was a thing back in the 40s to kind of fill things out. You'd have some presents and things. Interesting look. So we'll have to do some more research on what that was all about. And she says it's the Eastern method.
Yeah, the Eastern method of decorating their Christmas tree. Now,
East Coast.
One of my favorites, I love, is now when she says she's got the fever, I'm like, I love Christmas. A Christmas Story. They didn't decorate the Christmas tree until the night before Christmas.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was silly. Yeah. Why would you do that? Why would you have it? Why would you go through all that work to have it up for a month like I do? So yeah. You know. But that is interesting. We'll have to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, though I would judge. There's a lot of people that take it down the next day after. Hey guys, there's still 12 days of Christmas. I reminded people of this in an earlier episode. 12 days. The Kings don't get there till the 12th day. Please stop calling it just Christmas Day and then seeing the trees out on the curb. It really is disturbing, of course. And whenever I go by those nativity scenes, of course, I'm really upset when it's like before Christmas and certain people are in the scene that aren't there yet. So.
Oh, I can't look at nativity scenes out in the wild anymore. I'm like, baby Jesus.
He's not there yet.
Not supposed to be there yet, but yeah.
The Kings are way off in the distance. Put them in the backyard and slowly inch them forward, as you go. That's the thing to be done. That being said, I don't think we need Christmas in October, which seems to be what's happening at the stores. I think around Thanksgiving, like post-Thanksgiving, we need time to enjoy the tree, time to enjoy the decorations. But the Eastern methods, clearly it was popular in the East Coast in the 40s, night before. And the garden, apparently.
That's interesting. I'm going to have to see how that works out because...
Yeah, see some pictures of that. It was a thing, so...
Not for people with cats.
No.
Or young children.
Yeah.
Jean... You said on a card that you were unhappy about the night duty, but that you were in no position to quibble. Explain that, won't you? And you also said that you'd probably be able to write more letters to us while you were on night duty. Explain that, won't you? Too much knitting, I'll betcha. Maida, you say you're on your diet again. Is that the plain-boiled, unseasoned vegetables, or does that mean a little less of the ordinary meals? We do hope you're feeling well these days. I often remember with a grin the way you browbeat me last summer, and I had to let you get by with it, because you're presenting the family with another Demaree soon. What, if anything, has been done towards getting those pictures developed? I'd like very much to have some if they're available. I'm so anxious to see the ones of Lewis with his birthday cake. If you'd like to send me the film, I'll try to get them developed here. I'd really like to have them. Well, I guess the end of the page has come up, so I'll stop now. Have a nice Christmas, and give each one of you a big kiss for me. Love to all of you. Lou, Sweetie, and Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Yay! Yep. More babies.
More babies on the way.
So Maida and Frank are having another one.
Yep. Another kid on the way for Frank and Maida.
I'm so happy.
To join little Susie. Yeah. So fantastic. It is amazing how all of the siblings are within a certain age range where there's like all these grandkids that are starting to appear in the scene here for Chester and Laura. And she's just thinking about everybody. She writes about it because she just loves her family so much. And she's so excited. And she's writing so casually to Maida. So her relationship with Maida is clearly growing.
Oh, yeah.
Over time. We don't see all of it. But she's so casual with her statement here in a letter to everybody that it's very clear that their relationship is getting much, much stronger than it had been in the past. So that's nice to see as well. But that concludes 1946. All the letters from 1946 that we're going to be going through. Just really a big year. A lot of really sad moments, tragic moments.
Yeah.
And then, but this uplifting at the end, you know, of where we are. And we head into 1947 with that kind of tone and mentality. We're going to head right into 1947 in next week's episode. So we encourage everybody to tune in to hear the story. We're going to get the full recap of Christmas 1946 in the January 1947 letters. So if people are wondering, how did Christmas go? Maybe she'll be making mention of that garden again and what happened with the tree and Joe and Marguerite. Well, we'll leave that for next week's episode. But until then, thank you everybody for listening to the Love Sweetie podcast. Jamie, I can't wait to see you in a day as we travel out to Chicago. We'll try to post some social media, post things on the channels about what's going on out there. I'm sure there are people that are curious about what is a podcast convention. I'm certainly curious as well. Seems
I
like it's going to be pretty big, but yeah, it'll be really fun to just see you out in the Chicago area. And with that, see you next week.
See you next week.